Welcome to the first episode of Goose TV on season 2. I'm super excited to interview today's guest, who is a PhD, Dr. Chris Smithmyer with Black Wallet and Black Group, who is launching a stablecoin 2.0 and doing all kinds of cool work as a leader in Web3 or the cryptoverse. And a lot of what he stands for is crypto accessibility for all, stable crypto markets, which is very important, and creating those standards that we all want to see and may lead to some regulation that's important for us in the US as well as globally, for us all to work together and cooperate. And then global improvement, which falls in line with that cooperation, where we have some certainty, some expectations of what we can do to do commerce together, exchange crypto, buy, sell, trade crypto, and then overall human rights and access to the information. We're stuck in our bubble here in the US because we have a more stable economy, more stable dollar, but compared to other emerging countries around the world, they're forced to look for other solutions like cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. So they are seeking out digital assets as a way to just do commerce on a daily basis, phone to phone, with what they have to work with. So I hope you enjoy this episode and the interview with Dr. Chris Smithmyer. Welcome to Goose Live and Goose TV. This is Charlie Stivers, your host, and we're launching season 2 of Goose TV. I have a special guest today. He is an expert in many things, blockchain, cryptocurrency, and is sought after by many leading regulators and organizations around the world. So we're super excited to have Dr. Christopher Smithmyer here today. Chris, welcome to Goose TV.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's jump into this. I know you're doing a lot of projects in this space, so let's get into the meat of things. When I first met you, you were launching a asset-backed stable coin. Why don't you share with the audience what you're building with stable currencies?
Well, one of the big things that got us into the cryptocurrency space was watching what happened with Mt. Gox and Terra Luna and stuff like that, where we saw that these stable coins weren't really stable. They weren't out there. So we really broke down for 2 years and did analysis on what stability means in the economy. And we came back to the point that if you are based off of the dollar or any fiat currency, you can't really call yourself stable because the dollar itself's not stable. It's a variable currency. It goes up, it goes down. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just whenever they came out with the term stable coin, it was just really good branding. So we broke down and looked at what brings stability to a system, and we said, well, let's go to the least common denominator, which is, can you exchange it for goods and services? So that gave us what the value proposition was. Our coin is based off of the value of goods and services. And the way we set it up was we went through and broke down different investment methods to make it as diverse as possible to create a very large basket of goods. And then as the stable coin matures, it's going to be based off that basket of goods. So it's taking the concept of real world assets and bringing them closer to a person. Because if you think about it, when you have your dollar in your pocket, you are 7 degrees of separation from your goods and services, because people started out with, hey, let's have gold because it's shiny and heavy and hard for people to steal. Well, then they turned it into gold coins, and then they turned it into letters of credit. Then they turned it into banknotes. Then they turned it into checks. Then they turned it and then we ended up with these Federal Reserve notes run by a private company and central banks telling us what we're worth and serializing the people. And we're like, well, wait a minute, why are we adding those 7 steps? Because every single one of those 7 steps cost us money. So we went back to the basics. We went back to real world assets, and now the market's starting to catch up with that, because we're starting to see a lot of movement in real world assets, tokenization, and modernizing the world in a way we haven't seen in 5,000 years.
Yeah, and who are some of the big backers of real world assets? And for our audience, if you see RWA, that's what we're referring to. RWA and real world assets is becoming a big thing, where you can tokenize a lot of these different assets like real estate, gold, diamonds, different sectors of real estate. So why don't you share a little bit of your insight with who's kind of leading the efforts?
Well, there's a lot of people leading the efforts, and then there's a lot of people that are leading their pocketbooks. So you want to make sure that you look at a company like Black Wallet, which is our company, or Blockworks, or one of these companies that is a recognized name for your tokenization projects, because there are a lot of people out there that'll say, hey, I'll tokenize an asset for you, charge you $100,000, and then give you a meme coin that you have to back with your own asset. And there's no link between the coin and the actual asset. For a real tokenization project, you really got to look at these big players. And I mean, the Ethereum Foundation's getting involved, the Solana Foundation, everybody in the game is getting involved with it. And we've been in this space for about 2 to 3 years now. Most of the other players have only been in it for about 1 or 2. There are a couple other old guys like us that are a little bit older and have been around doing it for a while. But as you look, more and more companies, more and more governments, more and more individuals are looking at tokenizing things of value. And what it does is it gives people access and it gives people a market. And both of those things are important, because let's say you're an artist and you make paintings. 2 years ago, what you did with that painting was you took a picture of it, you made it an NFT, you sold that right to people. And it worked out well until people realized there's 2 buttons on your phone, you push them together, you screenshot it, then everybody has a copy of your painting, because NFTs aren't secure. Yeah, you're the guy with the rights to it, but everybody else can take it. Whereas whenever you tokenize the product, it acts as a virtual bill of lading until you get it shipped to you, or you get access to your product or the revenues from your product. And that really brings you closer to what you own, and it brings you closer to what you create. Because you don't need to go to some New York gallery to sell your artwork now. You can sell it through a token exchange, and you can sell it fractally too. If a bunch of people want to get together and buy a $10,000 painting, they can do it and then share it however they decide to share it. Whereas with an NFT, only one person could really have it unless they fractalized it, and then a bunch of people have the same copy of something, and you're just selling prints at that point. So it's a really interesting process, and it really brings people closer to their assets and gives them an ability to change. And the closer we are to our wealth, the better the world is.
Yeah, so talk about the solutions that Kiros Coin is providing. I popped up at your website on the screen.
Well, we hope everybody goes and checks out Kiros Coin. We are in our pre-sale right now, which means that if people contact us and want to get Kiros tokens, they can get them at probably what's going to be the lowest price they'll ever be at. Um, if you go to the website, you'll see that it is asset backed. We are building it off of a massive mutual fund style system, which means that it should have positive stability for its entire life. I mean, the variance and up and down should be between 1 to 2% per annum per year. So it should be a very stable project. We've also moved very heavily into the tokenization projects. We're discussing some tokenization projects with the micronation of Liberland, with the nation of Haiti, and also with several hotels and banks around the United States and around the world. So these are major corporate players and major nations that are starting to talk about, hey, let's tokenize assets. The bond market is basically dead because you can replace that with tokens. So it's a really fun thing to get involved with. And then, of course, we are very firmly affiliated with the Government Blockchain Association, which has members around the world and is really moving to create cooperation between the private sector and the public sector to ensure that people can trust the blockchain solutions they're working with.
Yeah, so I'm going to share a little bit of your expertise. I mean, you're the co-founder and CEO of Black Wallet, which is, you're launching Kiros Coin through. You're a professor at Regent Law School, Doane University, in their MBA program and the business program at Arkansas. And you've also written 20 books about cryptocurrency and blockchain. So GBA sees you as a leader and or an expert and has hired you in some way or under contract. You don't have to go into too much specifics there, but you're working with them to establish international standards. Why don't you go into that a little bit and talk about your involvement in the organization and the international organization?
Yeah, that's well, one, it's a privilege to teach for those universities. Regent University is a great law school, Doane's a great business program, and Arkansas State is a great university down south. And working with them and working with groups like the Government Blockchain Association opens a lot of doors. And I do volunteer for the Government Blockchain Association. Most people that do work and aren't UN employees actually it's a lot of volunteer work, but it gives you a chance to meet a lot of great people. And one of the biggest, I guess I should start at the beginning of the story. Several months ago, I was asked to get involved with their blockchain maturity model and run our company through it. I looked over it and I said, hey, this doesn't really look at tokens. So they asked me to do the tokenomics standard for it so that they could actually look at tokens and say, is this a good investment or is a waste of time meme coin where you're just playing in the Solana casino? And we built that out, and for better or worse, I either was being punished for writing it or being rewarded for writing it, and I was asked to write a model law on digital assets and exchanges. And this model law, we didn't know if it was going to go anywhere. We took it and we went through the legal working group at the GBA. It was unanimously accepted there. Then we took it to the Dynamic Coalition of Blockchain Assurances and Standardization for the Internet Governance Forum of the United Nations, and we just took it there to say, hey, we're doing this. This is cool. The person that runs that group actually put it up for a vote, and with a 100% vote rate, we took it into consideration and public commentary. So now, if you want to comment on this model law, if you want to go look at it, look at where we're going. It's something that is out there. If you go to gbaglobal.org, Charlie brought it up on the screen, you'll be able to check it out, see what you think, and put your comments in. And this law wasn't written by an oligarch somewhere that said, this is what the law is going to be. This was a framework, and we are looking for public contributions and public discussion on the model law because we want it to be something global. Now, I was the lead author on it, but we like to think that the whole world has a chance to contribute to this. And please make sure your voice is heard. Also, to note on this, this is a law written for countries that really don't have the wherewithal to have major law like Fit 21 or MiCA come through. So it's more for countries like Tonga, Vanuatu, Indonesia, countries that are developing and becoming very modern countries very quickly, rather than the United States, Russia, England, China. I've had a couple people from those countries say, our country's never going to adopt this law because it was written by someone from another country. And I'm like, well, it wasn't written for you. It was written for the companies that, or the countries that don't have billions of dollars to put into developing a law, because they deserve to give their people access to cryptocurrency and blockchain. They deserve to have a chance to compete for the businesses that are out there looking for new homes. And they deserve to say, hey, we can offer this at a lower price because we don't have to tax you 21% or 30% or 60% for crypto business. We can tax you at something reasonable like 5% or 0% on a stable coin or a utility token. And we're getting a lot of interest from Eastern Europe. We're getting a lot of interest from Latin America. The world's rising up and saying, hey, we want to play on a level playing field, and this looks like the referee.
Yeah, and so I'm aware of, even in Africa, there's however many countries there, but one of the problems I'm hearing about is there's like, I guess, 2,000 different currencies spread across the continent.
Yep.
And the problem is they can't exchange services or goods with each other in a lot of cases, because one currency may be devalued overnight, or the inflation takes off over the weekend. How do you see this kind of fitting into scenarios like that, and, like you said, underdeveloped countries?
Well, it gives a leveling factor to these underdeveloped countries, because if you have a bad currency, and there are countries out there that have very bad currencies, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, where I have $100 million note from the Bank of Zimbabwe in my wallet, it's worth about $1.25. Like, it's not something that you want to base your economy on. And digital currencies give an opportunity for two things. One, it gives the ability for people to trust the digital currency, because if you're using a regulated exchange from a developed nation like the United States, China, UK, France, Germany, I mean, I could go off and name developed countries around the world for half an hour. But if you're using that, you can trust that you're going to have that asset. And as we move into this digital financial age, we've been in the digital age for about 10 years now. Now we're moving into the digital financial age. And as we're moving into this, we need to start putting the same protections in the digital space that we put in the traditional space, which is ensuring exchanges, ensuring custodial services, so that we can be sure that our money is going to be there when we want it. And when we can provide those protections to these these smaller nations in Africa with weak currencies, it brings us to the second point. Why is government involved with issuing the currency? And if you look back at history, there's one simple reason. People trusted the government because it was the one minting the coins. And it made sense. Back then, 1,000 years ago, that was a great point. Who else were you going to choose to do this? The Imams in the Middle East, or the Catholic monks? I mean, who were you going to trust? I mean, those were the only reliable institutions out there at that time. Now we're moving into the digital age. We're starting to look at how people feel about government. And I know that since most of your people that watch your show are involved with cryptocurrency, they're not people that are out there saying CNN or Fox are the top business advisors that you can trust in the world anymore. And the one thing that people can agree on is that AI doesn't care. It doesn't care about your politics. It doesn't care about your skin color. It doesn't care about your religion. It's going to transfer money from one point to the next. And the blockchain is the same way. And whenever you're in a person in a country like Central African Republic or DRC or even Nigeria right now, where crypto is pretty well criminalized, you understand that if you go to Binance or Coinbase or Kraken, any of these major exchanges, and transfer cryptocurrency, that you can trust that because you're trusting a computer. And you ask yourself right now, who do I trust more? A computer or my government to do the math right? And I think if you look at every global budget around the world, computers are doing a hell of a lot better than the governments are at keeping us from running into debt.
Yeah, keeping that emotion out of it. So the name of your company is called Black Wallet. And I was at Ethereum Denver this last March, April, and there was a lot of narrative talking about the evolution of decentralized wallets or Web3 wallets. Can you maybe talk about the standards or the risk rewards of having your own wallet that you control?
Okay, I definitely can, and I can definitely do that from a neutral viewpoint because even though our name is Black Wallet, we don't build wallets. That's not what we do. We want your wallet to be in the black. So one of the big things, if you're looking to get involved with cryptocurrency, is there are two kinds of wallets. There's custodial wallets and non-custodial wallets. There's a lot of people out there that are degens and Bitcoiners that'll say, if you don't have the keys, it's not your wallet. Well, the reply to that is, if you don't have the bank keys, it's not your paycheck, because you just can't walk into your bank at any time and take your money out and just go into the vault and be like, "Hey, Charlie, I'm in here to pick up as much money as I want." You can't do that. And the reason that we have custodial wallets, those are the ones that work with the exchanges. And that gives you the ability to trade at will. That means you don't have to trade money in, trade money out to get into the actual trading system. You can just leave your money in there hanging out. If you're actively trading, that's a great plan. If you're not actively trading, that's really like, do you trust your bank? If you just say, "Hey, I'm going to leave this $500,000 here on the counter, no receipt, watch it for me for half an hour." Nobody trusts the bank like that. Doesn't matter if you own the bank, you probably don't trust the bank that way. So that brings us to the non-custodial wallets, which are the wallets that we control. That is where your coin is registered directly on the blockchain and only you have access to it. This is what a lot of people use whenever they talk about cold wallets. A cold wallet is a non-integrated portal that is not connected to the internet, which means that basically it's somewhere that you're storing it that can't be accessed immediately. And this is where you should keep the bulk of your cryptocurrency, the bulk of your wealth, because then it's in your control. And that's really important. And something I always tell people whenever they're talking about anybody that's investing more than 100,000 or 50,000 or 10% of your paycheck every week, if you do something like that, have some sort of cold wallet to work with, like a ledger system that protects your assets. Because if you're storing everything on your cell phone and someone steals your cell phone and everything's activated by one password and they get through that one password, all your money's gone. But if you have a ledger, it's just a name brand, you can use Ellipse, you can use any of these cold storage devices. It creates an extra level of physical security where you have to have two separate devices to access your cold wallets. And it gives you a lot more protection. And they're about, like, if you're a small investor, you can get one for about $70. If you're a big investor, the X is a really good one. That's what I have, and it's about $120. So it's not an expensive investment whenever you're talking about having tens or hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in a wallet. And I've talked to a couple kids that are like, "Oh yeah, I have $220,000 or $4 million in my crypto wallet." And they're like, "It's all on my phone right now in my Binance account." And it's like, okay, one, you're coming over, I'm consulting with you. I'm not even going to charge you to help you fix that. But I've actually had those conversations, and it's really important. And I actually had the privilege of being at the Virginia blockchain showcase last Friday, where I was teaching government officials how to actually set up wallets and not get robbed, because making sure they knew the steps to set up a wallet and keep their seed phrase safe and what they can do with that. And I believe that speech will be up on the GBA. If you want to watch it sometime, you can go and watch it from the speech.
Nice. And so one of the things I tell people, if you have one of those wallets, you have to treat it like cash or gold. There's a lot of personal responsibility in making sure that you do good record keeping, protect that device, protect that 12-word passphrase. Any other best practices that you recommend?
Well, with crypto in general, or just wallets?
Yeah, I would say with wallets. But yeah, if anything that is worth noting.
I always tell people, if you have a large amount, there's several good wallets on every major chain. Spread it around. Like, don't keep everything in one wallet, because we live in a world where, I mean, there's the Israel-Palestine conflict right now. There's the Ukraine-Russia conflict. There's the Uyghur Muslim conflict. Like, there are so many conflicts around the world that could cause problems to the global internet structure. And because these nodes are housed on different countries' internets and different places, having your wallet, having your wealth spread across multiple wallets is kind of like keeping your money in several banks. If one of your banks gets robbed, you still have some of your money left, as opposed to if you have it just in one place and that bank gets robbed, guess what? You're hoping the FDIC pays you out your $250,000. That's one of the best things that I can tell people. The second thing is, don't keep your seed phrases all in one place. If you talk to my CTO, he's going to say break it into the either 12 or 24 component parts, whichever wallet you go with. Some have 6 seed words, some have 12, some have 24, and then split those up in different places. I usually recommend to people you break it into 3 parts, put them in 3 different places, make sure it's somewhere fire safe, and if you do, make a couple copies of each piece and put it in a couple more places, because then if like your house catches on fire and you're like, oh my goodness, all of my seed phrases were in the house, you're out of luck. Nobody can get those back for you. But if you have them spread out, you have them in a safe deposit box somewhere. Like I said, have 3 safe deposit boxes. Don't put them all in one safe deposit box, or somebody could steal them theoretically. Because I guess this is my biggest point. The computer doesn't care. It doesn't screw up. It, as long as somebody has that code, it lets them in, and it doesn't make mistakes. So if you're going to lose your money in crypto, you're going to lose your money in crypto. The computer's not going to lose it. Like these guys in Congress after FTX are like, woe is me, the blockchain failed. The blockchain didn't fail. There's a bunch of con men down in the Bahamas that stole people's money. I mean, this was Bernie Madoff on the internet. That's all it was. There has yet to be a evidence of the blockchain being hacked by a brute force attack. It just hasn't happened. Could it happen someday? I mean, it might happen someday, but the difference between the government information systems and the blockchain, both are on 256-bit encryption. The difference is that everything on the government chain is on a server, which means if you hack that 250-bit encryption, you get whatever's on that server. You get all that information. It's a ton of information. It's everybody's social security numbers. We saw that happen on Friday. Everybody's social security numbers compromised now. If you hack one of the nodes that has information on Charlie Stiver's crypto wallet, you get probably 1/28th, 1/35th of the data you need to take anything from him. You don't get 1/35th of what he owns. You have to hack 35 other nodes before you get that. And do you know how long it takes to hack a node like that? Probably about 2 years for most people. Like most computers would take 2 years, and that's if the security system doesn't boot you out or make you put a new password in. So the big advice is keep it separate, keep it safe, and trust the computers. Don't trust the people, because people can be I can't think of a nice word to use for what people are. So, but computers don't care.
Gotcha. And so you mentioned FDIC, and there's also SPIC for the securities side of things. So you're doing a lot with the international model law, and
Yes.
Can you talk about maybe some of these standards and regulations they're looking at on a global basis, and then is some of that framework maybe going to be our the regulators and protection that users maybe not want for our digital asset holdings?
I do believe it will be, and this is where I get into arguments with both the simps for the federal government and the regulators, or not the regulators, the degens, because they look at it completely different. We tried to go down the middle of the road. So one of the things we put in there is AML KYC, which means that extractable wallets should be attached to a human identity. So when you take your money off chain, you can change it as much as you want behind chain, but whenever you have it off chain, you want to make sure that the person is identified who's taking that money out. Why? Because you want to make sure it's not going to a sex trafficker. You want to make sure it's not going to a terrorist. You want to make sure it's not going to some Russian oligarch that's on the sanctioned list. The degens hate that. They hate it with a passion. You know who else hates it with a passion? Politicians in Congress, because they're doing the same underhanded thing. And every nation in the world that is working with the UN is already signatory to at least one AML treaty, which means that your identity needs to be housed by financial carriers, which means the wallets and the exchanges. Individuals, that's not their problem, but it is the wallet and exchanges problem. We hope that this type of regulation provides two levels of security to people. One, you know who you're dealing with. Like, you don't want to be donating to terrorists when you think you're donating to make a wish. Like, you, there's a big difference there. And the second thing is, once we have identities attached to wallets, then we can start bringing in an insurance system that's attached to those wallets that can preserve your wealth if something happens. So if I'm 80 years old and I have $200 million in my crypto wallet, and I just don't wake up tomorrow morning and nobody else has my keys, nobody else gets that money. Like, my family can't get it. It's gone. But if we have a system where the wallets are attached to people, then we can have a legal system where the data can be accessed. And while the original wealth cannot be taken out of that wallet, because obviously if other people had your keys, that you wouldn't be secure, but they can tokenize the assets which are in that wallet and give people access to that wealth, knowing that that wealth is there and it's going to be there on the chain forever. So it's possibly one of the most secure assets you could possibly tokenize. So I think that's really where we're going with that. I mean, we're also trying to work on the terminology. We use a combination of the Ferris taxonomy and the MiCA taxonomy, which Ferris taxonomy is what we use here in the United States. It was written by Stacey Ferris out of University of Virginia or Virginia Tech, one or the other. I don't remember which school she's at. And then the MiCA rules were written by a whole bunch of European bureaucrats that got together, brought some experts in, listened to them on half the words, and didn't listen to them on the other half of the words. So we have some good stuff over there. We have some bad stuff going over there. The Ferris taxonomy is good the whole way through, and we put those pieces together, and hopefully people like it and can give them a stable methodology to decide where they want to store their crypto and who they want to store it with.
Cool. And then, so I know with your interactions with GBA and working with the international model law, can you maybe like share some stories of, where these other countries or, consumers see that need, and like maybe some of the stories that you're hearing from other leaders around the world?
Yeah, it was actually really interesting because last Wednesday we had the first round of the commentary on a roundtable for the model law, and in the second session we had two people from the Mexican Central Bank, the chief financial officer of Bahrain and of Egypt, like two separate people, of course. We had one of the leaders of the Kenyan Supreme Court. We had one of the financial advisors to the family in Saudi Arabia, and we had one of the leading people for digital assets for the United Kingdom. And they were all on the same call, and they were all coming together to talk about this because this is such an important thing. Because we all saw what happened with first it was, like I said, Mount Gox, and then we go into the Terra Luna, and with Celsius, and then FTX. And the governments are starting to realize that, hey, the con artists in this field are going to move faster than we are. But do you know the only people that can move faster than the con artists is the people that are doing legitimate business in this field? And those people are tired of being treated like they're hucksters and grifters. They're ready to step up and fight to make the world a better place. And guess what? Crypto is now 15 years old. We're coming out of puberty. We're coming into adulthood. And it's time that the crypto community grows up. The Wild West is over, and Now we're moving into civilization, and I think the world's going to step up and take notice of this because we are the 7th largest economy in the world. And anybody out there that's holding coins, you are part of that economy. And your voice needs to be heard when it comes to what the laws are about your money.
So you're saying the crypto industry in general is the 7th largest economy?
Yes.
Is that...
It just passed France, I believe.
Oh, interesting. And Bitcoin represents about half of that. We're
Yep.
seeing a lot of evolution with applications, Lightning Network, people building on layer 2 of Bitcoin. Do you have any takes on that?
I like some of it. One of the biggest problems you see with Bitcoin and some of the other legacy networks is that they're a little bit slower. Their decentralization leads to like some problems in development, but it also leads to the wonderful nature of decentralization, which is what we're all working towards. So there is good and there is bad with it. We're seeing a lot of development on the Ethereum, the EVM side, and also the altcoins, where they're doing stuff that 10 years ago would have been considered cutting edge, and it's now course of business. For example, I think everybody in the space is watching the XRP case. It's basically, how's the government going to handle horses and carriages? Like, if you look at it that way, like, it's the technology is a little bit older. It still works. Don't get me wrong. XRP's technology still works, but their claim to fame was, we can validate cross-border transactions faster than Swift can. There's news to people out there that are new to the crypto community. If this is their first introduction to crypto community, I hope I'm not talking too high level here, but this should make it simple. Every crypto on the market, with the exception of Bitcoin, can outpace the Swift system. It can outpace Swift 2, it can outpace Swift GPT, because where they take hours, we take seconds. Where they charge hundreds of dollars for large transactions, we charge pennies. And where their validation leaves questions, because there are humans involved with that, as I've noted several times, the computer doesn't care. Its record becomes immutable and it doesn't translate. Now, 10 years ago when XRP came out, that was cutting edge. I mean, that was, wow, hey, who had this brilliant idea to make things fast, cheap, and immutable? That was brilliant. And everybody else in the space does that now. And it's really important that you recognize that regardless of whether you're using a state-of-the-art stable coin like Kiros, or you're using some offensively named meme coin, you have more protection with that meme coin than you do with the US dollars in your wallet. And that should make you question why the government's running our money. Why aren't private companies running our money? With government oversight. There has to be government oversight, at least for now.
Yeah. So you're part of your education and teaching I have LLM down here. I forgot what the acronym stands for. But share with us like what you're working on as far as, teaching others in law and more learning.
I have the privilege of being involved with a team of people from the GBA that are creating a LLM program. Now, LLM has a couple meanings in the space because there's large language models for the AI folks out there.
Mm-hmm.
We're not building an AI. Actually, I have part of my company building an AI right now, but it's not this project that we're talking about. An LLM is the degree above a Juris Doctorate in the law. So it's a step up from just a regular lawyer degree. And there are a lot of lawyers out there that are amazing, like Cogent Law, Block Law. They are cutting edge with the digital assets market and the blockchain market. They're legendary. There are also some lawyers out there that aren't quite as legendary. They went and watched a couple YouTube videos and are now saying they're experts. We're trying to get credentials out there so that lawyers can actually say, hey, I'm an expert in this. not that they paid for a badge, because that is one of the most dangerous things in the field right now, is that there are people out there, oh, this badge is just as good as your degree. And it's like, well, okay, if I go to a hospital, I want a doctor that has a medical degree, not a guy that went on YouTube to get a badge. Badges are for Boy Scouts and kids, degrees are for adults. Let's keep the lines drawn here. And just because you have something doesn't mean you're an expert in it. And this is what we're trying to demonstrate in the field. We're trying to get the lawyers the credentials that they need to actually go out there and push the hucksters out of the market. Now legal, the ABA does an okay job of keeping bad actors out of the system, but there are bad lawyers out there and they do scam people sometimes. So you want to go somewhere where people are known for what they're good at. And like I said, Kojin Law Group, they're known to be great in the blockchain space. Block Law, great in the blockchain space. Perkins Coie, great in the blockchain space. But pretty soon there's going to be a credential so that everybody can find it. You don't have to research for a couple hundred hours to find the good lawyers. So that's what we're building. It's going to be awesome. And if any of you guys are lawyers that are interested in it, please feel free to email me. We're hoping to have the first cohort next year.
Very cool. And so then the next thing you've been working on that I'm aware of is you're working on some concepts in Web 4. I mean, right now, the whole decentralized world and blockchain crypto falls under Web 3. Can you maybe kind of take us from a little of that progression? Web 2 is, what we've all come from. And so just kind of explain that for our audience a little bit, and then what you're doing in Web 4.
Okay, so the history of the internet in 3 minutes. So we started out with ARPANET, which was a connection of computers that the Defense Department was using to talk to each other to make sure we weren't shooting at ourselves around the world. Great use. Love that we were doing that. Eventually, they started saying, hey, universities, you could probably use this too, so people aren't researching the same thing. As you guys know, about 3 people discovered penicillin at the same time because nobody knew they were researching it. Louis Pasteur got credit for it, but there was about 3 other people that had already discovered it too. So they gave it to universities. The university said, you know who would really like this? Businesses would really like this internet thing, so their computers could talk to each other. And that brings us up to about the late 1970s, where it was just computers talking to each other. This is where HTTP came along, and they said, wouldn't it be great if we had one language that computers could talk to each other in? No matter what the language on the screen was, they're talking to each other in the same language. And this is HTTP. This has evolved a couple times over the years, but it's still basically the same communication protocol. That gave us the first version of the World Wide Web. Now, the web and the internet are 2 different things. The internet is the communications matrix. The web is our interaction matrix, and it's the UX/IX for it. Whenever the Web 1 came along, it was super, super boring because it was just web pages that only the owner could change. Like, there was no interaction. There was no email. You go look at a web page and be like, hey, this place has sausages for $5. And that's all you could do. About 14 years from later, so from 1988 or 1978 to 1990, this new thing called Web 2 came out. And if you go back and watch the TV videos from there, it's hilarious whenever people are talking about the email. We're going to get the email here for CBS Morning News. We're going to get the email here for Fox News. And it's like, it's email. It's electronic mail. It's so funny.
I remember Katie Couric on the Today Show talking about that.
The email, and it was like, yeah, we're going to get this. We're going to be so cool. But it was the dawn of interaction. It was the dawn of being able to buy stuff on the internet, being able to communicate, the person-to-person transfers. It all came from that. So we went from read-only to read-write. Well, then fast forward from 1995, about another 15 years forward to 2009. There was a paper written in the early 2000s by a guy named Scott Stranetta. He talked about this thing called a blockchain, a verifiable system of timestamp data. It's an amazing paper if you want to read it. If you're not a tech guy, it might put you to sleep, but it's the heart of it. I mean, that BattleNet, the bot networks, they all came together to make this amazing thing that we now call the blockchain, which is Web 3. Now, the difference is it is decentralized. In Web 2, you used to have everything go through your ISP. This all goes, the blockchains are spread out around the world. It's through the cloud, through different servers, through nodes. It gets kind of complex in that area, but you have these immutable read-only blocks that guarantee your data is what you say your data is. And for a human, that's okay because we have to still differentiate between whether the data says, hey, this is a financial ledger for Microsoft, or hey, this is a picture of the Pope in a puffy coat that we saw on when AI came out. The concept of Web 4, we're doing the same paradigm shift that we saw in Web 1 to Web 2. We're taking read write and adding it to the system. Now we're not getting rid of the read-only blocks that they're needed for directional matrixing and communication matrixing, but we're bringing in the ability for the AI to have blocks that they can store data in temporarily and use that data to triangulate to see whether things are factual or not. So instead of having the guy, his wife, his mistress, and the cat from the one news agency, I'm trying not to say the name because I don't want to get you in trouble, but from the news agency that fact checks, you're going to have an AI there that, once again, the computer doesn't care whether it hurts anybody's feelings. It doesn't care what politics it's getting involved with. It will tell you whether something's true or false, because that's how the digital world works. Everything is a 1 or a 0. And Web 4 unleashes AI to go out and fact check and make it so that whenever your kid Google searches, somebody doesn't hide porn in something that kids might look at. It goes in when you Google search that a news network can't put fake news out there to support their favorite political candidate. It won't allow the system to lie. Now, there's still going to be the old Web 2 system where if you want to go and look for conspiracy theories, you can chase that rabbit hole so deep that you get back to where Hammurabi was a lizard person and he was Queen Elizabeth's great grandfather. But if you want real data, if you want to be a researcher, if you want to be a journalist, if you want to be a professional, the AI is going to be able to parse that data. And there's still always going to be the human element where you've got to say, does this look too good to be real or too dumb to be real? But it's going to give you access to that. And it's going to give humanity a way to organize the billions and billions of terabytes of data that we have to make it accessible so we can move forward with medical research, so we can move forward with human rights systems, and so that we can move forward with dealing with major existential threats to humanity, getting the politics out of it, getting the emotion out of it, but keeping the facts. And that's really our goal with Web 4. We're going to have the white paper out in a couple weeks. We're going to have a book out in a couple months. There was a project that called itself Web 4 back in 2017 where they added AI to the blockchain. That's probably Web 3.5 realistically. There wasn't a major paradigm shift, but now we're looking down the barrel of something new, something innovative, and we're really lucky to be partnering with different groups out there. And as soon as we release the white paper, I can actually start saying who the groups are, and some of these names are names you're going to recognize.
Awesome to hear that progress. So with AI and robotics, being a part of our future, maybe I can see a day when agents that are basically AI bots are paying or exchanging cryptocurrency. That's another use case. Where do you see that evolution going, where there's AI using crypto to complete tasks or buy stuff?
It's here. You can buy AI packages for your stock trading programs. Now some of them, the problem is this isn't Chat GPT. These are smaller models and they can still be tricked. So be very careful if you use AI stock trading bots, but they're going to do better in the market 99% of the time. The problem is if they're not making mistakes, they're basing it off of the numbers. But if they misread the numbers where a human would catch this and they say, hey, we need 8 million fire trucks to put out all the Tesla cars that are going to catch fire because batteries catch fire. That's them looking at the news and saying that all these Teslas are catching fire. No, a very, 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 very small percentage of Teslas have caught fire, but the news blew it out of proportion. And sometimes the AI is getting caught up with that. Another area where we're seeing AIs make cryptocurrency transactions is in the betting market. There are betting apps out there where crypto will, AI will bet your crypto for you, and it's averaging a 4x return in 3 days. But once again, it's got an 80% success rate. So 1 out of every 5 people that does this loses everything that they're betting. So, I mean, it's a better bet than you're going to find in any casino, but it's also still highly risky because AI isn't quite there yet, but the systems, the architecture is already being developed in the high risk industries. You're seeing people generate AI images, sell them, and do everything through the AI model now. That is available out there now, buying AI artwork from an AI, which somebody still gets to check, but they're the artist that designed it. So, I mean, it's there. There are abilities where AI is starting to make purchases in crypto, and there's places where AI is making purchases in fiat currency. And as we look at different elements of society and how they're working, we're going to start seeing AI pop up in other places, such as voter validation. One of the things that is really interesting is when you come back from a cruise, there's a computer there that can validate your identification. You don't even have to stop anymore. The only reason they stop you is if the computer doesn't understand who you are, and that's AI checking you out. Someday we're going to have that in voter rooms so that whenever we walk in, we know that it's a person that's supposed to be voting, not a felon, not a illegal immigrant, but someone that's supposed to be there. And these AI systems they're going to make schools safer because you're going to walk up to the door, it's going to scan your face, and it's going to say, hey, you're Charlie Stiver. You can go into your kid's school to pick up your kid. Or it's going to say, I have no idea who the hell you are. You're not coming in this school until somebody comes and escorts you. And these type of systems, like, it sounds like it's creepy, born ultimatum kind of stuff, but there are areas where this actually helps society. Now, there's other places. I don't want an AI camera recognizer in my bar or something like that, or places where it doesn't need to be. But there's a lot of places where you're starting to get to where your face is pretty soon going to be your credit card. And that's AI spending your money for you.
Yeah, excellent. A lot of good points today, and thank you for sharing. So we have posted a couple of articles that Chris has contributed to goosmag.com. Check some of those out, and you can see like how in depth he goes and some of these, pretty big problems and solutions that he's suggesting. Any final takeaways, advice, or anything like that for our audience, Chris?
For anybody in the crypto space, this is your era. I can remember about 20 years ago when Nightmare wrote that book on hacking. It said, this is the age of the atom. This is the age of the molecule. We're all parts of a system that we might not understand yet, but we're working together to make the world a better place. Make sure your voice is heard. We're coming up in an election year, and personally, I don't care who you vote for as long as you vote. Get out there and make your voice heard. Let people know that you want to have control of your wealth and control of your life, and that you want to keep your freedoms. And it's important just at the top of the ticket and at the bottom of the ticket and the whole way through the ticket. So regardless of which party you believe in or which ideals you follow or what country you're in, make sure your voice is heard. Because regardless of what your constitution says, regardless of what your law says, every human has a God-given right to state what their opinion is. And it can be the best opinion, it can be the smartest thing in the world, or it can be the dumbest thing you ever heard. But they have the right to say it. And make sure that you're out there. And if you're watching Charlie's show, you're probably one of the smarter ones. And get out there and make sure that the smart people's opinions outnumber the dumb people's opinions, or else we're all in trouble. Thanks.
Awesome advice, man. Thank you. And we'll close it there. Make sure you catch the next episode of Goose TV. And thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for having me.